Good afternoon, and welcome to Round 1 coverage of the Spring 2018 Link to the Past Randomizer Tournament. This coverage is going to be a little bit different in that for logistical reasons we were unable to get this match to you live, so instead we're actually going to have commentary from both of the runners in this match. So I am RaikouRider.
I'm Cube. The Zeds are an inside joke. Don't worry too much about them.
So, although did you have experience with the vanilla game at all?
Absolutely. Of course I did.
And it looks like we're underway. So this will be, it'll be a little bit different from last year's tournament. It will be standard mode. However, instead of getting a guaranteed sword at Uncle, there will be a randomized weapon.
Yes, which is rather annoying a lot of the time.
Depends on what it is. It can be a sword, it can be hammer. I personally like to see sword or hammer. What I don't like to see is this. I don't like to see bombs.
10 bombs, yeah. The bow is personally my favorite.
Yeah, bow is nice. Bow is nice because it can impact your routing. It can impact your routing. It makes Eastern early a lot more lucrative, especially if Eastern is a crystal. And even if Eastern is a green pendant, there's definitely a good enough reason to go over there because it's 4 items that don't take that long to get.
So of course I killed the green guard and got the bomb drop because I had 10 bombs anyways.
Usually when I go for bomb drops, I actually try to, if I have a sword, I try to spin attack 2 of the guards in that room to try to increase the chances of a bomb drop. But they're actually, with the new, it's not as big of an issue in this logic as it was in past logics. Because in past logics, a lot of the prizes weren't shuffled.
Yeah. The big thing with the bomb start is you want to make sure that you spend the minimum number of bombs in the front half as possible, because that rat at the end is just such a mess.
And that's actually one of the primary reasons why in the most recent logic, if you do run out of bombs, you can take an intentional death and you'll get 3 bombs back.
Yeah, or save and quit does the same thing.
I was starting to panic a little bit here, being on half a heart, because you can't actually throw a bomb down the stairs like that. So what I end up doing here is just laying a bomb and letting the guard just run into it.
Yeah.
Because being on half a heart in Escape with bombs is never fun.
No. The back of Escape, there's a lot of the enemies that will... If you get a bad pattern, you just kind of have to take a hit, so you don't want to be almost dead for sure.
And this kind of situation where the guard is trapped against the chest like that with half a heart, it's very difficult to get a bomb back there.
Actually, it's not. All you have to do is walk up to the chest and plant a bomb on it, and you'll hit him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It definitely spices up Escape, though, so overall I do like the change to allow for a random weapon in Escape, because otherwise it plays exactly like in vanilla. And
yeah, my position on it would be, if you're gonna do this, why wouldn't you just play open mode? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly, but this is definitely more accessible than open mode, because you get a guaranteed weapon.
Yeah, unless you get the bombs. I guess that's my actual position. If they just took the bombs out of the pool, I think it would be fun.
Not to mention, not to mention having bombs and escape, it feels like you're just not getting a weapon at all because you're not getting any kind of progression.
Like if you get the fire rod and you soft lock because you run out of magic, like I think you can't really blame the game in that case. You know what I'm saying?
You get 8. The fire rod is a very accurate weapon, and you get 8 charges with a.
Yeah, you get 8 with a full magic bar, and there's a couple of pots that have small refills in the sewer, so you even get a couple more.
It's plenty.
But with the bombs, like trying to bomb this rat that's coming up, I don't know. I don't feel like you have much control at all. The rat movement, so you can just get screwed.
Honestly, I find that the best way to do it is to just hold the bomb, and then when it starts flashing, you just throw the bomb in the rat's general direction.
Yeah,
and
I agree, but it's you have to basically just hope you hit him because the rat will stop and go at its own time, right? So like what's coming up here is it takes me I think 4 bombs to hit the rat, so it's pretty good that I got a couple of drops.
It's on a. I want to say it's on a. I want to say it's on a timer.
Could be. Don't know.
I'm not 100% on it, but I want to say it's on a timer. Nice rope formation.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with low life rate. Like, you get a bad pattern in that, you just die. Do anything.
And there's almost always force damage in that room as well. If you have bombs. But that's definitely the biggest argument for removing bombs from the weapon pool.
Yeah, I think it makes the game like less accessible. But just with the bombs, otherwise it's fine.
We have blue armor in the. We have blue armor in escape as well, which is pretty nice to have.
Yeah, that one's going to be important for this seed.
This blue armor raises your defense by 25%, which is at this point about as effective as a heart container.
Yeah, and in the light world, it effectively doubles your health.
Because most enemies in the light world either do half a heart or a heart of damage.
Yeah.
And the rounding in this game is to quarter heart, but overall escape pretty dry other than blue armor.
Yeah, didn't really get any. Got the shield. If that's your thing.
The shield is one of those things that's just very easy to forget you have.
Yes. The level 2 shield that blocks the fireballs is not the worst thing in the game. But I wouldn't go out of my way to get it.
And you might actually notice me going over to the graveyard to do a Houlihan.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm doing this Houlihan is because I don't have bottle vendor money.
Oh, and you're out of bombs too. Okay, that a little more likes. Like for me, I don't really need to do that because I've got 3 bombs. So I've got
3 bombs. Three bombs is plenty, especially.
Yeah, something like 15 locations I can access for 9 rupees. So if I didn't hit 100, it would be pretty ridiculous.
It's pretty unusual.
Actually, that's not even true because there's pots in the blind side. You can get 30.
It's pretty unusual to not have 100 rupees coming out of escape, especially with bombs, especially because of the number of locations that are accessible.
Yeah. So I got this blue cane. I had to use it to get past that bird because it was almost dead. Was pretty lucky.
That bird can be very tricky to dodge. And Cane of Burna is another thing that's very, very easy to forget about, and many times in this tournament, there have been runners that have died to blind with a full magic bar and forgot they had Cane of Burna.
Yeah. The cane lags the game so much, though, that you really want to try to avoid using it as often as you can.
Nothing doing at Lumberjack.
Yeah, I actually don't even like to check Lumberjack early. We did the math on this, and 10 out of 11 times you just waste 20 seconds walking that way. So it's not really worthwhile to do it unless you've got the boots, in my opinion.
It's definitely something that's up for debate. A lot of runners in the tournament do like to check it.
Yeah, the argument is that the one time out of 11 it is useful. It will often cost you a lot more than, the couple of minutes that you've added up skipping it.
Not just that, but the peace of mind as well.
Yeah.
We have a bottle in Kakariko Well. That's very nice for the routing.
Yeah, it makes it easier. And there's lots of rupees in here too.
Kakariko Well extremely rich, having 400 rupees.
That bottle vendor turned out to be a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. The hammer?
He was selling a hammer.
The hammer is... well, the hammer, for one, is always required to beat the game, and two, if you can understand how the hitboxes work, you have access to tempered sword damage as well.
Yeah, it's the first functional weapon that we've acquired in this seed, which is kind of important. Right, like you don't want to be going through Eastern Palace using your ice rod on the Stalfos.
And in the tavern, I found the Cane of Samaria, and I am never ever happy to find an early cane. If anybody watching has access to the interview sheet from the tournament, you may remember that my response for the item that you want to see least early is the Cane of Samaria. Because I find that with an early Cane of Samaria, there's very, very awkward routing in seeds.
I don't know. I think the cane saves you time in some spots.
It does, yes, but from the seeds I've played, both in 28 and in 29, a Cane of Samaria tends to open up the possibilities for a very early Turtle Rock. And Turtle Rock is a huge time commitment, especially when you can't complete the dungeon, but most of the chests are open. And I was definitely a bit relieved to find the Ice Rod.
Yeah, for the same reason. So, the Ice Rod sucks.
Because then if I do need to get to Turtle Rock, it's pretty likely that I can complete it when I go up there. Of course, it depends on the location of the Fire Rod.
Moon Pearl at the race game. That one seems important.
Just a little bit, and with that, with hammer, glove, and Moon Pearl, we actually already have Dark World access.
With your blue mail, your 3 hearts, and your no sword.
So it looks like we have Desert Green Pendant, and Eastern was Crystal 6?
Yes. And Blue Pendant at Tower of Eris, so this is not a great start.
No, not at all.
In terms of dungeon spread.
Not just that, but another thing about this, about having so many pendant dungeons in the Light World, is, especially for Hera and Desert, which require relatively few items to complete, it increases the chance of it being a pedestal seed.
Yes.
So
yeah, Pendant Hera is probably my least favorite. Like, I would take Thieves Down over Tower of Hera for Pendant, personally.
Absolutely. Just any dungeons that require very few items to complete are an indication of the pedestal being more important. Just because the way the item fill algorithm works, the greater the chances of an item being able to be placed at the pedestal earlier in the logic. I do like the use of the Cane of Samaria here.
Yeah, I wanted to save some bombs. This does not go as well as I would have liked, but I get through it.
No, not at all. Because mini Moldorms tend to not cooperate at all.
No, they don't. I do have to end up hammering this last one, which is always fun too.
This mini Moldorm cave was really dry as well.
Yeah,
the
straight nothing.
The health is fine, but just nothing at all.
Yeah, a couple of hearts is not bad, because, like you were saying earlier, we can go into the Dark World right now, but that's a dangerous proposition with the current equipment.
The reason why, and I'm actually taking a trip into the Dark World here, the reason why I'm doing this is because if you have the capability to route this by going back to Link's house, it can save a lot of walking around Dark World when you go around the Horn later.
Yes, this is actually a philosophy of mine that we'll talk about when I do it in a little bit here.
So this is our first real route divergence in the race.
Yeah, and you were saying you skip Ice Red Cave. In this version, you should not do that.
I was very, very happy to find red mail. To find early red mail. Having 15-minute red mail is going to make me pretty much fearless going into dungeons.
It certainly makes the game quite a bit easier. Instead of your 3 hearts, you've got 7 or 8.
It's
effective.
Plus with having access to hammer and lift upgrade, that's a pretty quick check, and it's definitely much faster than checking it as part of the Thieves Town check, especially when you don't know where the gold glove is. It looks like we have ether on the island, which could wind up being needed.
Yeah, I like to fake flipper here as long as I have both the Moon Pearl and enough money. If I have only one of the two, I don't usually.
Same.
Yeah, I don't. A big philosophy of mine is I don't really like to leave isolated squares. So I don't like to fake flipper and then just have Zora sitting there naked and have to go back to it 45 minutes later.
Exactly. The downside to that is it makes Catfish extremely difficult to check later.
Yes, and we are going to get to that when I go into the Dark World.
So there are definitely pros and cons. I'm also a big fan of the early Zora check, which is actually one of the reasons why I am a huge fan of the early Houlihan in open mode. I will early Houlihan in every open mode seed. And every open mode seed that there's not 100 or 300 rupees at Sanctuary.
Yeah, I can see the reason why you would want to do it. If you want to make sure that you get the Zora out of the way.
Because Zora tends to be available very early in the logic.
Yeah.
And any locations that are available early in the logic have a much higher chance to contain items that are important for progression. And for those of you wondering why that is, that's actually beyond the scope of this video. But VTorp has a great guide for explaining how the item fill algorithm works.
Yeah. The short version is that the harder a location is to get to, the less often you're going to find stuff because you actually need things to get there.
Sure, yes. And just a life lesson from Zora.
Yeah, straight nothing, as one would expect. But you've got it out of the way, you've scouted the ledge, you know you don't have to come back.
Exactly. The ledge item is actually the biggest reason to go to Zora early. And now all this money that's being handed out early makes that Houlihan look really bad.
Yeah, but waste 30 seconds. But I mean, when it pays off, it pays off, right?
So Misery Mire 5 and Pod was the other pendant.
Yes, Pod is the red pendant.
So This is actually in terms of pedestal, one of the most awkward setups that we can have, because with the current setup, Bo cannot be there. And
you're not going to find...
Bo can't be there. I think that might be it.
Yeah, the thing is that desert is a little bit tricky, because you need a lot of stuff to clear desert a lot of the time.
You do need a lot of things to clear desert, yes, but it's almost never the same items.
Yeah, it's a little bit flexible, and you don't know if you need it until you're inside, right?
Yes. So the only thing that cannot be at the pedestal is Bo.
Yeah, basically we need to get every item in the game to finish it with this layout.
Not only do we need every item in the game to finish it, but anything except Bo can be at pedestal.
Yeah.
Which as soon as I'm in this kind of situation, as soon as you typically want to hold off on Skull Woods until you have Mirror and Book, so you can route in a pedestal check.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about before. Because I did the fake flipper and I went up to Zora, I've kind of left Catfish sitting there on his own. So when I go into the Dark World, I route Hype Cave, up to Pyramid, up to Catfish.
This makes sense, because this is the only real convenient time that you can check it, and because you have access to Eastern, you can always take the tile by Eastern to route in Palace of Darkness if you feel so.
It's basically, if I don't check this now, I'm not going back until it's the last possible place I can look. So I'm gonna commit to make sure I get it out of the way.
This makes sense. And at this point, it looks like I'm making the Thieves Town play.
Yeah.
Hammer hit boxes.
Yeah, for that guard, what I like to do actually is pick up that sign and throw it at him. It speeds up that screen quite a bit.
There are definitely arguments to, as soon as you get here, at least taking a peek in Skullwoods, because Skullwoods is a quick check. A heart container at Catfish, which is
not the worst.
It's not the worst. Not with the item situation. And there I get the bad news that
you have to 100% the game to finish it. And it looks like you are going to check Skullwoods.
There's arguments for and against it, because Skullwoods is a quick check. But yeah, there are definitely arguments both for and against it.
Yeah, I tend to do it, especially when I have the cane, because I can, for the vanilla big key, I can use the block instead of having to drag the statue.
Exactly.
Which makes that a lot less annoying. That's one of the worst rooms in the entire game.
Pretty big payoff. We have flippers.
Yeah, you hit the flippers in the first box.
And big key in the second chest in Skullwoods means we do have to go through the pinball room. Now, for those of you not familiar with the history of the randomizer, logically, it is possible to put something other than a small key in this chest. However, it makes for very poor gameplay.
Yeah.
I want to say it was for version 24. This chest could contain things other than a small key, but if you fall into that room and that chest contains something other than a small key, then the only way to leave that dungeon is to do a save and quit.
Yeah.
And it was...
Which they said they didn't want you to have to do, but then they put in the blacksmith on the purple chest where save and quit is an acceptable thing. So I don't really know.
It's more of a time thing where it's...
So when I'm going through this dungeon, I like to go to the back first. And there's two reasons for this. The first is because you route from the back to the front, so when you leave, you save some time. And the second is you give yourself a lot more boxes to find that small key, so you can hopefully avoid the pinball room.
True. That's
and as an extra nice little bonus, you come in through this door. So if you have the mirror, you can warp back to there instead of having to slow walk out.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah. Now, there are some downsides, like, for example, if you go to the back first and you find, like, the compass, and then you come in the front and you just find the fire rod, you look like an idiot. But that happens. The items are in random locations.
That's just part of Randomizer.
Yeah.
V-Torp!
Yeah.
What's that doing there? That's vanilla.
Yeah, no kidding.
And now we have flippers on Cube side as well.
Yeah.
So, with the... But the flippers don't really open up too many locations by themselves.
No, especially since we've already checked the overworld locations, and they actually don't open anything at the moment. Which was, actually, when I was playing, was kind of confusing to me, because I was wondering why it gave me the flippers, and then they led to nothing. So I was kind of suspicious of that pretty early on.
I do like the Thieves' Town check here. With the hammer, you can finish this dungeon. It is a little dangerous at 5 hearts, but with red mail, the only thing that's super scary is the blind fight.
Yeah, the big thing here is you don't have any magic for your blue cane,
and
which would make this free.
There is a blue potion in the bank, though.
Yes, that is true. Although you typically don't want to burn that in Thieves' Town half an hour in, if you can avoid doing so.
Yes, but it is a nice bit of insurance, especially with the health situation the way it was. This is actually the lowest health I've been in Thieves' Town with. This is less health than you come into this dungeon in low percent with. And if you want to get better at the randomizer in terms of improving combat and improving your comfort with Dark World dungeons, and just the game in general, one thing I highly recommend doing is try to not even with a timer, but just try to finish low percent.
If you're thinking about playing, there's two things that I think you need to be able to do for Randomizer. The first is your Ice Palace bomb jump. Just practice. And the second is your lower percent boss strats. Things like Hammer Trinex and Master Sword Ganon. Make sure you can do that, because it comes up way too often. And it's super frustrating to be 95 minutes into a seed, and then you die at Trinex.
And in low percent you have to do Silverless Master Sword anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, typically you won't have to do Silverless Master Sword with Green Tunic, but because Silverless Master Sword Green Tunic Ganon is about as hard as it sounds.
Yes, it sucks. It's not a fun time.
But if you're capable of doing that, even if it's not consistently, then you should be able to handle anything that this randomizer can throw at you.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about it, but we did find a shovel inside Thieves' Town, so that's a fun item.
I was pretty happy to find this shovel, because typically after poking into Skull Woods and completing Thieves' Town, you'll want to, if you don't have Gold Glove, is when you'll want to just go around the horn in the Dark World. And and the fact that we don't have a mirror is going to make routing very awkward. Another thing that helps with practicing routing is taking advantage of the customizer. Putting items such as mirror and flute late will restrict what dungeons can be crystals and what dungeons can be pendants, but practicing mirrorless, fluteless seeds will improve your routing a lot. And And speaking of movement items, all of the movement items are still out there at this point. There's no flute, no mirror, no boots.
We at least have the hammer, so we don't have to slow walk to Kakari Hill to get to the Dark World.
At the very least.
Yes, but it's certainly not a fast seed in terms of movement.
Not at all.
Which is actually comes back to what you were talking about, in that you want to make sure that you're routing efficiently in this situation, because every time you have to save quit to the house and hammer the peg and lift the portal and then walk to where you're going, like that costs a lot of time.
I was pretty excited to find powder in the Thieves' Town Big Chest, because powder is going to make the later dungeons a lot less scary.
Yeah, powder is actually the best safety item in the game.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
absolutely. Once you have powder and a good supply of magic, you're effectively invincible.
And in this specific case, because we also have the hammer, it even opens up an extra location at the bat.
Yes.
Which may or may not be important later.
Yes, in that case it does open up the bat.
So yeah, it's definitely a good item to find. Especially since there had been just about nothing else.
And also, another thing to bring up at this point, we're a half hour in and there is still no sword.
Yes, currently swordless.
This is the first dungeon that's actually been completed swordless.
Yeah, pretty good swordless blind fight, 6 hearts. Can't complain too much about that. The fireballs don't care about what mail you have, so...
That's why that fight is so dangerous, is because regardless of what you have, the fireballs do 1 heart of damage, but blind and touching the blind heads, that damage is reduced by mail. Which,
yep, and the lasers, too.
And the lasers as well. And
which is...
that's where the low percent... I'll just tell a little story about the first and only low percent run I've completed. I had 19 deaths in that run. 10 of them were to this boss. Because in low percent, you fight blind with, I want to say, depending on your route, you fight blind with either 7 or 8 heart screen. And bow at digging game.
Yeah, this is where things start to really get interesting. We dig up the bow.
So even with that bow, what that opens up is it does open up Eastern and Palace of Darkness, but because we have mirror, because we don't have mirror, rather, it's going to be a little harder to route them together. I still think, given the number of locations that are still left, finding bow at digging game is a clear sign that the next progression item is either in Eastern or Pod.
Yeah, which is at least slightly annoying, because Palace of Darkness is a pendant dungeon that takes a lot of time. So you really want to try and avoid going there if you can. But you are currently sitting at a spot where your two real options are spawn at the house and go shovel to the bat, or leverage your bow and go this way.
And between Eastern and Palace of Darkness, we have to complete Eastern anyway because it's a crystal and it's crystal 6. So that will... And
you also have Sahasrala's hut here, which has 3 items in it that you haven't been to yet. So in my opinion, you've made the right decision, and it's not really close.
This is actually one of the reasons why I am against doing an early Sahasrala check.
It takes a long time to walk over there. Like, that's 45 seconds that, you might have just completely wasted, and then you have to come back anyways, right?
Correct. Correct, and especially, it's more... I actually think that the early Sahasrala check is better if Eastern is a pendant, because then you can just go there, check it, and usually not have to worry about the bow.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to return. You're not going to return for the item from the Armos, unless you can just logically conclude that it's the last thing there. Because going back through an entire dungeon to get one item is usually a losing proposition. But overall, even though we've had a couple of divergences, the routes have come back together, and the race is still very close.
Yeah, it's hard to envision a runner going pretty much anywhere else, given the way this is played out.
There's still no hook shot either.
Yes, which is unfortunate. Early hookshot is definitely my favorite item. That's what I want to see in Link's house every seed.
There's no hook shot, and there's another thing that that has been a bit worrying is there's no East Death Mountain access either.
Yeah. 2 checks on Death Mountain, and that's another really long check for usually very little payoff.
The only reason to go up there at this point would be to open Death Mountain up as a warp spot.
Yes, which there's no reason to do until you have the flute.
Exactly, because
so there's not much reason to go there.
It's so much faster than
Sanctuary. If you want to get the full life refill, it's about the same time wasted as Link's house, but you don't get the old man to heal you. Assuming you can just flute away to wherever you want to go afterwards.
Oops.
Yeah, Big Key is kind of a big deal. You need to go get that.
Big Key is a little important, and it happens to be in its vanilla spot.
Yeah. Yeah, within the logic, you got the lamp early, which is probably relevant here because it's just compounds that surely it didn't give you that bow for absolutely nothing, right?
I mean, just considering that the bow is the first major progression item we've seen in a while, it just makes sense to come here because there's so many locations opened up by the bow. Generally speaking, when you pick up a particular item, the very next thing that you want to check is something that was opened up by the last item you collected. Yeah, unfortunately, I was a little bit low on health coming into this room, so I needed to get the hearts underneath the pots before doing the anti-fairy skip.
That's another spot where you can use your cane, by the way. Just walk right through them.
But I was definitely very relieved to have an early lantern for this reason, because if I remember correctly, I did a practice seed before the race, and the lantern was in Turtle Rock.
Yeah, and your dark rooms didn't go so hot.
And Turtle Rock was a pendant.
Yeah, of course. Of course it was.
I'm actually okay at the dark rooms. I just don't like doing Mire.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess dark rooms are another thing that you probably want to practice if you want to play these, because the lamp is almost always easy to access, but when it's not, you really don't want to have to go and find it. Right, you don't want to lose a race by 15 minutes because you had to go get the lamp off of Pendant Cold Stare. That's no fun.
I've been there before.
Yes, me too. Believe me, that was what convinced me to sit down and practice those.
And, like, Mire in the dark is not easy to learn either.
No, it's not. There are some tech you can do, like for the switch room, which is the one people complain about the most. If you hug the bottom wall and throw the block up, it will land on the switch. So you don't have to. The actual hard part for the room is finding the pot and lifting it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I needed to pick up some arrows there because I was a bit low. That's another thing that can make a surprising impact on a gameplay, is just knowing where minor items are even. Especially magic refills later in dungeons. It's very important to know where all the full magic refills are.
Yeah, so when I was playing through, I was pretty happy to find out that Armos Knights had an item. Because that means that item was bow locked. But, of course, it turned out to be nothing, so... At this point, I basically just made the decision, like, whatever, let's go into pod. There has to be something there.
I believe I came to the same conclusion.
Yeah. Palace of Darkness can cost you a lot of time if you get a crappy item layout.
And especially if there just happens to be nothing there. But given the progression in this seed, both of us believe that it is extremely likely that there is progression here.
Yeah.
And this actually, another reason why I went to this dungeon now is because this is the only time in the game that I'll really be able to route this.
Yeah, you don't want to have to come back. That's for sure.
Because the fastest way back here from a save and quit from the light world is taking the portal by Link's house, hammering the pegs, and walking all the way up here, and it's not fun doing that. So this is the best time in the game that we can route this, and I also still have pedestal in the back of my mind. Because the one progression item that we found is the one item that can be at the pedestal. So
yeah, it basically put the pedestal into the logic. Which is not quite true because we can't get to desert yet, but
yes, but it's something that if the pedestal is required, not doing this dungeon now could really, really hurt long term. And every single item that is required to complete the game could potentially be at the pedestal. Like hookshot can be there, fire rod can be there, mirror can be there, boots can be there, flute can be there, any of the medallions can be there. Anything required can be at the pedestal.
But at the same time, it's still statistically unlikely the pedestal's required. And if you full clear this dungeon for absolutely nothing, that's not a great spot to be in.
Yes, if the progression item we got was something other than the bow, then I can assure you neither one of us would be there right now.
This would not be the correct play. Not even close. So I see you're going straight to the bowlock side first. I would argue that that's the less efficient of the two routes for a couple of reasons. So I'm going to open this chest here. I find a piece of heart. And what that means is that I can now walk right down this hole. And I can get this chest too. And then I can take the portal right over to the bow side where you're at. And in here I find 20 rupees. So what that tells me is that I know that in the first 6 chests in the front side of pod, I have to find 4 small keys. Because I've opened two chests and found 2 items, I know that every other chest in the front has to be a small key, and I can skip the vanilla big chest. Because I know that it's a key.
That's demonstration of just your great knowledge of the inner workings of the randomizer, because that's something that I didn't think about when I was exploring this dungeon.
Yeah, so basically there's 6 small keys in pod. 4 of them have to be in the front, 2 in the back. So there's 2 chests. The one you're checking here, the vanilla big key, and the chest in the harmless hellway, where if you know the logic, you can skip them a lot of the time. Because you're just spending a key to get a key here.
And another reason why if this is a pendant, especially in this situation, I would normally avoid this dungeon, is because of the lack of mirror. Having mirror saves so much time, even in vanilla. In vanilla, I want to say you mirror back to the start of the dungeon either 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and this goes back to what we were talking about how when you lack movement items, routing is very important. Like, just because I have done the chests in a slightly better order than you, I have gone from slightly behind to a couple rooms ahead inside this dungeon. But if you had the mirror, it wouldn't have mattered at all.
Exactly, which is why practicing fluteless mirrorless can help so much.
Yeah.
And it's really
so I found an extra key in the basement here, so now I have 3 keys, which the easiest check for this harmless hellway chest is if you have 2 keys, it's a key, you can skip it. If you've got 3, you have to check it. Very simple.
And half magic is definitely something that...
One of the better luxury items that you can find.
Oh,
sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not having half magic going up GT, for instance, it can be really scary. And if you have to do Silverless without half magic, or you have to do Trinex without half magic, going in there without a potion can be a serious issue.
So for version 29, this is doesn't always mean anything, but they've made a change where for Trinex, you are logically required to have either half magic or the tempered sword. One of those two things has to be available to clear Trinex, which of course doesn't mean that you will find it, but it is out there somewhere. Yes, both of those things make Trinex go from very, very difficult to really quite easy. So I'm attempting to death warp here on these dragons. It doesn't go well, but we get it done.
Now that actually makes sense because it's just with the way the room layout is. I'm just used to not death warping here.
Yeah.
Just because.
Fortunately, I didn't have a sword here because if I have a sword in that room, I kind of just autopilot kill all these things. That would have made it quite a bit more difficult.
And that does bring up a fair point. 45 minutes in, still no sword.
Yes, not one yet. And there is an item on King Sword, by the way. We didn't talk about that, which is the only reason.
That was the
well, there's two reasons. Yeah.
That was
I'm committing to this because it has an item, and because I haven't actually found anything yet. There's no progression.
Exactly. So at this point, we're both thinking for different reasons. Because one, you haven't found progression, and two, I'm more worried about pedestal. That we need to complete this dungeon. And this is a good demonstration of why it is a good idea to death warp or mirror after the big chest, because of the crystal switch. You'll have to flip the crystal switch, and because we have no boots, we cannot bonk over the pit to be able to easily get back to the point where you would shoot the crystal. This turtle room, when you have just hammer, is so tricky.
Yeah, it sucks. The hitboxes do not make any sense.
There is a very good reason why I call that room the worst room in the game.
I have a lot of worst rooms in the game. I'll cover those as we get to them.
I still think that in vanilla, I think that the turtle room is one of the worst rooms in the game.
Okay, so this is King Sword. It's another fight where not having a sword does make it quite a bit more annoying. You are a lot more vulnerable. But with 7 hearts and red mail, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Blue potion in the bank too, should it come to that.
I was a little worried about my arrow count going into this fight as well.
Yeah, me too.
Because if you don't have arrows, you would have to use...
I don't think you can hammer him with a sword. You need the extended hitbox. So actually, if you run out of arrows, you might have been screwed. Now that I think about it.
Can you hit him with bombs?
I don't know. Blue cane, you probably can. With half magic, that might have been. But that's something I'm gonna have to test. I don't know.
It's not relevant very often. It's one of those things that you'll learn about it after it happens to you, and then it'll never happen again because because this is such a weird spot to be in.
Yeah. So at this point, I was feeling like I was quite far behind.
I was really puzzled at this point as to where the progression was, because the bow opened up those 10 location or 8 locations rather, and led to absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I had it figured out. I knew that the magic bat was where I needed to go because I got the powder out of Thieves Town. But I had still full cleared Palace of Darkness. You know, a 7-minute commitment, and I got absolutely nothing.
It was also... But even so, that's difficult to route without a mirror, just because with Thieves Town and Powder, if you have a mirror, checking that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's why I did the play I did, right? Because I couldn't easily access it. All right, this check was Shovel into Magic Bat, which is 2 checks against Sahashala Eastern Pod, which is 11, and a crystal. So obviously the mathematical play was to do what we did, but of course that's not where it was. So I'm going to check the Magic Bat here, and I'm going to find the boots. Spoiler alert.
And this is where I do a pyramid check.
Yeah. So now at this point, I was already feeling behind. Now I feel like I'm really far behind because I found the boots at a location I could have had them 15 minutes ago. And I also knew that the boots had to lead to wherever I was going next. So if you had found these in the right order, you had probably found your next progression item. You had definitely not gone to pod.
This is one of those seeds where if this was a weekly, like a 70-80 man weekly, somebody would finish in with the knowledge that we have right now. Somebody would end up going, how did somebody finish?
Some guy would have just hit the God Route and he'd have finished with like a 125.
But this bonk rock check makes sense because the boots open up exactly one location.
Yeah, well, I actually don't have anything else. Like I have Old Man and Spectral Rock Cave on Dead Mountain. After that bonk rock, so I find a book, and now I'm gonna go up and check Lumberjack now because I found the boots. So now I know that there's a chance it's required. I'm gonna go make sure I do that check. And of course, we know that there is nothing.
And the routing was a little bit different in such that you chose to do Catfish before pod, and I chose to do it after.
Yeah.
So it's overall not that big a difference.
No, that equalizes.
The difference in time has just mostly been in the routing in pod.
Yeah. So I've got this book. I don't have the Master Sword, so the only location it opens is Desert Palace. So that's where I'm going to go next. Very linear so far.
And these kinds of seeds are where it really comes down to execution as well.
Yeah.
Because
which I think we're pretty similar in terms of execution level, right? Neither of us is fantastic, to say the least.
I would say passable.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're bad, but we're certainly not, 130 NMG players. Which would have been a big problem. Like if one of us is playing Andy here, like we're 10 minutes behind.
Do you have a time
at this point? Do I have a time?
Yeah.
52:30. Oh, you mean an NMG? No, I don't.
I have a 156, so I'm not good.
Yeah. I would imagine that I'm somewhere around there. But I'm basically... So this was kind of brutal. I go into desert. I have to switch to my bow to kill this sand thing.
And you're low on arrows, too.
Yes, and I open this chest. And I find the big key. Which makes the worst possible route, because now I have to go over here to find the small key, go all the way back to the other side to open the chests. And there's compass on the torch, so the boots don't lock anything in here.
And I chose to go to Death Mountain here because it was more locations.
You do find the hook.
Yes, the hook shot. Knowing where the hook shot is, which means that as soon as I find the mirror, I'm going to immediately come back here and get this.
Yeah, in the end, I guess I'll say, in the end, that doesn't really hurt me.
So
but it certainly could have.
So at this point, I was actually thinking that I was behind as well, And I was checking Spike Cave, which is a location that's very, very difficult to check unless you have East Death Mountain access. So I was thinking that if I check this and Gold Glove is here...
Yeah, you could open up a huge lead.
And then...
Which is not what's here, but there is something pretty good.
Yeah, there's... And we have Flute and Desert.
Yes, we find the Flute and Desert, which doesn't actually lead to anything. So I was a little bit triggered.
And... Yeah, that's... Isn't that a great location for the first sword?
There's a sword. So at 54 minutes, you have found the fighter's sword in Spike.
And then at this point... And then also bear in mind that at this point, of the locations that I have left are... the locations I have left are I have Agonaz Cave left. I have the Shovel Dig Spot. I have Mad Batter, which I'm checking now, and there's still Ice Rod Cave. I did not check Ice Rod Cave at the start because in past logics, checking Ice Rod Cave early, unless you had some kind of movement item such as Boots or Flute, was a bad idea because it was about a minute to a minute and a half time commitment.
Yeah. In this logic, Ice Rod Cave is the highest individual percentage location in the entire game, at 17.3%.
And that's something that I did not understand at the time.
In this seed, they didn't have anything, but you definitely should not skip that one.
And now with the boots, that opens up exactly one location. So
yeah, that's where you're gonna go next.
And it actually would have been smarter to do a save and quit to Sanctuary immediately. Unless I see what I see.
Yeah, you're gonna go get your shovel check in. This makes sense to me.
This makes sense. This makes sense, but the very next thing that should be checked at this point is the
Bog Rocks,
is the Bog Rocks, which...
And so we've got an Ice Rod Land Molars fight. As you'll see, I'm clearly amazing at this.
Oh, this is very difficult to do because of the delay. The Ice Rod projectile is so weird.
Yeah, its hitbox doesn't make a lot of sense either. There's a lot of items in this game.
But it is by far the most efficient way to kill the Land Molas at this point because the Fire Rod and Ice Rod does...
super effective damage.
Yes, it does 8 damage per hit, and the Land Molas have 16 HP.
So I run out with one left, I gotta hammer him.
The hammer still does good damage, it still does 4 damage.
Yeah. Again, this goes fantastically.
And at this point I get my book, and the only thing that makes sense here is to just go straight to Desert.
Yeah, it's the only location it unlocks. 20 rupees on Land Molars, so I cleared Desert. I didn't get anything other than the green pendant, because the flute doesn't actually unlock any checks. And I believe I check Agina's Cave, save quit, activate my flute, and immediately turn that in. But I might be wrong.
That's the thing that makes sense, because if you find nothing in Desert, then it makes sense.
Then it has to be the Old Man or Spectacle Rock. That would be the only options I'd have left.
And Spectacle Rock is something I've already checked, so we know by watching now. But at the time, we didn't. Neither one of us individually knew that there had to be progression.
Yeah, at the green pendant. That's the next time. So I find a shield in Agina's Cave. That's cool.
So it looks like a Death Mountain check here.
No, I'm activating my flute for sure.
Right.
Yeah, no reason to do anything other than that.
Because you can flute there.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that after this I flute to 5 and turn my green pendant. There aren't any other plays that would make much sense.
I mean, there are definitely some players who would use the flute to go up to Death Mountain and check the items there, but given the way the progression has been in this seed, it makes much more sense to go to turn in the green pendant. Because of the way the way the distribution method is, you tend to get item chains in the late game.
Oh, I forgot about this. I do a pedestal check.
That actually makes sense because since you don't have mirror, after turning in the flute is probably the best time to do a pedestal check.
Yep. And as we had previously discussed, the only thing that was on the table was what we needed for desert, which I have now completed. So I'm aware that the pedestal is basically on the table for just about anything.
At this point, the only thing that can be there is Fire Rod and Mirror. And, one of the medallions. How did you feel when you saw that Bombos was on the pedestal and we haven't been able to check Turtle Rock or Mire yet?
Well, it's a sword that's on the pedestal. Bombos is on the Ether Tablet coming up.
Oh, I was thinking of another seed, I did, sorry. But,
nope. The sword was similarly triggering.
But seeing a sword there does bring up another point. Although it's not likely, that sword on the pedestal can be required.
Yes, it certainly can be in some situations.
Because if the other two swords are locked behind progression items that are, let's say, for instance...
Can I just interrupt you real quick?
Go ahead.
We just got our Saha check. I found the Titans. So that's the item that really breaks this seed wide open. And I'm going to flute straight to Mire, and I'm going to find my mirror in the Mire shed. Which really breaks the seed wide open.
Yeah, having such an important progression item at Sahasrahla
is fairly rude.
Oh, absolutely. This has been a very rude seed so far. And there's the mirror. Yes. So that is a sign to finish Mire.
And a mirror shield.
Finish Mire.
Yeah. Go check out the checkerboard cave.
Finish Mire. Like, at this point, why not complete Mire?
I can't get in. I don't have the quick.
You don't have a medallion, right? That makes sense as well. Both of us at this point were going pretty crazy.
Yeah. So I found my mirror. Now I have actually opened up Deathmatch. So that's where I'm going to go next. By far the best location in terms of chests per minute.
Oh, absolutely. We also have Dark Death Mountain access, but we can only access 3 items up there.
Yeah. And also
in your case, 4. In your case,
also of relevant note is that Tower of Hera is my last pendant. And I've checked the pedestal, and I know that there is a sword there, but that would be required is rather unlikely. So I don't really want to go in there, especially since I already feel like I'm well behind.
There is an argument to going up there, though, because since Hera is such a short dungeon and you've already completed the other 2 pennant dungeons...
Yeah.
Having a sword upgrade may save more time in combat than it does to do Hera.
Yeah, it might. But I was definitely looking for ways to try to make up some time at this point.
Oh, absolutely, and I don't blame you.
Yeah, and I do find my hookshot right here, so... This was 3 really relevant items in really quick order, so that was cool.
So then, at this point, I would say there's at least a minute lead.
Yeah, something around there.
So it's still been close the entire time. And when you saw
my Bombos.
When you saw Bombos at Ether Tablet, did that direct your attention to the sword on the pedestal at all?
It did not. I really imagined that the fire rod was going to turn up somewhere, right? Especially at this point where I have like a million things I can check on Death Mountain before I have to worry about that. So it was kind of a note that that's there and then revisit it if necessary.
But this was definitely one of those seeds that no matter what you did, you just had to feel you were behind.
Yeah, you could have avoided doing pod, which would have you in a good spot, but it would have been, I think, a pretty big gamble.
Oh, absolutely. At the time, it would make no sense to check batter, because that's a minute or so check for one item.
Yeah.
And there's my gold glove, and I would have done some rage slashes if I could guarantee that wouldn't get me in trouble with the admins.
It doesn't usually.
Because I was very unhappy to find the gold glove there.
Yeah. So it's looking like you're gonna go somewhere that isn't to the mirror. So that's you're gonna check King's Tomb. I can get behind that.
It was more to check King's Tomb before going to Death Mountain.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately didn't really work out. There was not a lot there.
No, Paradox Cave was empty.
And of notes. What even gets further into your mind is when you're 65 minutes into a seed and still don't have a sword.
You know, it really doesn't bother me as much as it does a lot of people. Especially when I've got red mail, I've got 10 hearts. I've got Kano Burn I should have required. I've got my hookshot now, which is the item that I want the most. For safety.
So the only thing we're missing are medallions and fire rod, and it's really unusual to go this long without any medallions, and it looks like a double quake.
Yeah, we did know that Ether was on the Hylia Island, but it turns out we don't need that.
No.
So we are just looking for the fire rod and the Quake medallion. And technically the Master Sword, but I'm always assuming that I will find that by accident.
When I had gone so long without a sword, and I saw that sword upgrade at the pedestal, I was it really brought it into the front of my mind that I need to do Hera and pick up that sword.
Fair enough. I can see the argument for it. So I'm making my way through Death Mountain here. I'm finding essentially nothing, but I did find that hookshot right at the very start, which opened up Swamp Palace for me, so that's going to be my next location.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense because it's a crystal dungeon, and it looks like you're on the way to Spike Cave, which
yes, I am going to find my sword at 1:09 or something.
68, 69-minute sword.
Yeah. This was really nice, though. It was a very efficient one trip clear of a lot of chests on Death Mountain.
It's something that's very difficult to hold off on, just because the seed in terms of progression has been so dry that.
Yeah, you were so gated by the Titanmates that there wasn't much you could do in the early game, because it's just like Sahashala is just the last place you're gonna go.
And there it is. So at this point, I was feeling, what is this, a V26 seed? Because...
Well, I don't know, man.
Because
26
had an issue where it tended to put a lot of swords in Ganon's tower.
Yes, and it also had this issue where it put required items in Skull Woods literally every time. And we did find the flippers there.
So at this point, I'm going to do blacksmiths in the purple chest.
Yeah. And I would assume that after that you will find your mirror pretty quickly. Because you're rapidly running out of checks at that point.
Is the only... Because the only things that I have left at this point are Purple Chest and Mire Shed.
Yeah, and Ice Rod Cave.
And still Ice Rod Cave, yes. Ice Rod Cave still has not been checked. And this is where I was really starting to get worried that there was something important in Ice Rod Cave the entire time.
Yeah, and that's kind of what goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the catfish as a red herring trick. Like, it's just if you leave Ice Rod Cave like that, you're not going back. Not until you got nowhere else to go.
At this point, it would save time over checking it early game because I can just flute to 8.
Yes, but if there was a required item there that you could have had 40 minutes ago,
exactly,
that would be pretty ugly.
Exactly. In previous logics, there was definitely a good argument for waiting until you had flute. And especially routing it with Ice Palace, because 8 is where you'll want to flute anyway to get to Ice Palace.
Yep. So you found nothing in the whole blacksmith charade.
And then I just go straight to Mire.
Yeah, go straight to Mire. It's really your best option by far.
It's 2 locations versus 1 location. We can check the medallion for...
Yeah.
It's Quake. Which is still... It's still MIA.
Yep.
And there it is.
Yeah, there's your mirror. So that blows the seed wide open for you.
So that
and your mirror shield.
But at this point, I still cannot complete any dungeons.
No, it puts Tower of Hera on the table. And that's it. Which is not a good feeling when, 3 of the first 4 dungeons you complete are all pendants.
So now with the flute, we're just gonna go up to Death Mountain and clear the rest of this out.
Yeah. Just like it was for me, it's the best check for you by light years.
It's so many items.
Yeah, so much better than anything else you could do with the mirror. So when I'm in Swamp Palace, there's some disagreement about this, but what I like to do is go to the boss first 100% of the time. I never check the left side before I kill Argus, because that way I have the maximum amount of information for when I make the decision.
That does also make sense, because if there is a big key at Argus...
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is if the big key is in the back, which in this case it wasn't, it's actually the first chest. But if the big key is in the back, then you're going in anyway, which is pretty gross.
It's not an issue. It's not a real issue unless the big key is specifically at the boss. Because if the big key is in the back, then you can just walk back to the big chest and it's not that big a trip. But if the big key is at Argus, you have to make an entire trip into the dungeon again. Yeah, and the other thing for me is that if left side has 1 item, I'm skipping it 100% of the time. I don't care. I'm just not going back for that. There's no way that it's a good play when it's 3 or 4 minutes for 1 item. Which is maybe not the best philosophy, but... And in this case, that is what it turns out to be, as I'm going to get, I think, the compass off of Argus. It's definitely a moment where it was probably influenced by feeling like you're behind. Honestly, for me, Swamp, it's not. Like, I don't go left side for 1 item. I just don't think it's ever worth it. If I get burned, I get burned. But I can definitely see the argument in it. I can definitely see why you would do that. It's a tough call either way. It's almost 4 minutes for 1 item. Like, it doesn't get much worse than that. So I have to hammer the last phase of Argus here, because I don't have the Fire Rod, I don't have the Silver Arrows, and I don't have the Master Sword. Which is not great. No. I did like your technique of doing spins on the
Yeah, it's definitely faster than menuing to the hammer. Once you're good at it. Just the thing you have to take into account is that a fighter sword slash will not damage the buffs. So you have to make sure that your sword is fully charged before you extend your hookshot. So I didn't find anything in Swamp, but like I said, I'm not going left side for one item, so now I'm gonna chase my mirror to a couple of obnoxious overworld locations. Which I wasn't feeling too good about, because I already knew that the mirror led me to the hookshot, which led to nothing. So wasn't feeling too hot about that.
At this point, this is where I was starting to think maybe I wasn't too far behind, and it was just one of those 100% seeds.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. Like, we're at the point where this is such a mess that, like, how could he not have gone to bod? Like, how does that ever make sense? Which turned out to be true. So I've got Blacksmith, I've got Purple Chest, I'm gonna do that. I think I wrote Graveyard Ledge in here. No, I don't, because I flew the chest away. Of course.
Graveyard Ledge is one of those spots that I was also worried about as well, just because of how difficult it is to route. The only other thing because we don't have a cape, if I had a cape, I would definitely consider it, because...
Yeah, at least gives you something else to do. I definitely do check it at some point, although I don't remember exactly when, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't here.
And sometimes you'll just get seeds like this, where no matter how efficient you try to play, the seed just won't route.
No, it's like, yep, you're screwed. Get wrecked.
So given what you had to work with, I feel that you've routed well, but again, it's just...
Yeah.
The logic is silly in this seed so far. And we're still 2 items away from go mode. And this is where I make my play to Hera.
Yeah.
Because I'm still a little bit worried about being behind, so...
Yeah, you just decided that you're going to do it.
I feel like,
which I think is reasonable.
I feel I need to make a play somewhere, because even if there isn't progression here, having the Master Sword will save me time all over in combat.
Yep, it will.
And I was just thinking, at this point, it's very unlikely for him to actually complete this, because just because of the way the items were.
As it turns out, that happens to be where I'm going right now, because I full cleared Swamp, and I didn't find anything, so... This kind of sucked. I had to go back up Death Mountain a second time for a pendant dungeon that I didn't want to do.
When I made the decision to go up to Death Mountain is when I committed to doing Hera.
Yeah. Which, again, I think is reasonable, for sure. I definitely understand, and as we are going to learn, it will work out.
And I was not happy to see that key either.
No, that was not what you were looking for.
And also, Moldorm with Hammer is never fun. It's better than doing 6 slashes, but it's still not
Moldorm with Fighter Sword is less fun, is the argument I was going to present.
Exactly. That's too vanilla.
Yeah. You don't want him to get that into that last phase where he speeds up.
No, not at all. Not at all. We have to deal with that enough in vanilla. Unfortunately, Moldorm not liking me at all.
Nope, it happens. This boss it gets everyone every once in a while.
This boss doesn't care who you are.
No. I don't think I fall, but maybe I'm just... We'll find out.
And there's the Quake Medallion.
Yes, there's the Quake Medallion, which is a big score.
So
Yeah, I have to imagine you were feeling good about that.
oh, not just that, but I was starting to think that maybe. Oh, I think I do this. I think I check this and then I think I just went straight to pedestal. I can't remember for sure, but
Yeah.
You know what I had?
Yeah.
You know what I had in the back of my mind by going to get the sword upgrade? You know what Bombos does give us?
Ice Palace.
Ice
Yep.
Palace access. So
I was aware.
So I was thinking, what if the Fire Rod is an Ice Palace?
Yeah, it had occurred to me too. Now here's my thought process on this. I got my Quake Medallion. I had just opened up, what's it called? Misery Mire. And I knew that. So my original plan, like you saw me flew to the village there, was I was just going to go get it. And then I changed my mind, because I figured there was a good chance that the Fire Rod was in Mire. And if I found it there, I could grab my Master Sword when I went to Mottula. Which would be less of a waste of time.
Yes, but one of the big reasons why I wanted to grab the Master Sword first was because with the Vitreous fight, I could actually do cane dash strats.
Yes,
which is
I
the
ended up having
the preferred
to.
way.
Yeah, I ended up having to bomb him,
And
which is a cool fight, but it's not very fast.
yeah, I've actually had to do that once because I've had to do that once just because of defense issues.
Yep.
Because having to do spins on all the eyeballs when you have green tunic is not advised.
No, and I also don't have a lot of arrows either. Like if you just have 60 arrows, then it doesn't matter, right?
So I think at this point, before I went into, I wanted to do a Bombos check before I went into. Well, I'm doing Swamp first, but
Yeah, Swamp seems like the best play to me.
What I wanted to try to do was just route in Bombos, because the Bombos tablet can be a very difficult location to check.
Yep. Make sure that you get a look at that. Which I definitely did not, and was not particularly happy about. Because Bombos tablet had actually burned me in a practice seed just a day before we played this race. So I wasn't feeling too good about that.
But at this point, 80 minutes in, as equipped as you are, like this is where it starts getting scary because you just have to wonder.
Yep. Like I didn't think you were that far ahead, but I knew that if you had done the right things, like you could be in Ganna's Tower, right? For sure.
That hammer dash in Swamp Palace is one of my favorite things in the dungeon.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I did visit the pedestal first was to just speed up the rest of the dungeons.
Yep, it will cost you some time to go get it, but it will save you some in terms of making the game easier, for sure. But like I said before, I wasn't too concerned about the sword situation. I can handle a lot of the random enemies with things like the Fire Rod and the Hammer and stuff. Fire Rod, I don't have that. The hook shot. So we waited through the 40-second Mire cutscene to fall down here and get, I think, a piece of heart. Yes. which was a shame.
Yes, but at this point, you just have to be thorough when looking for your last item, because there's no real sense of like item chain or progression when you get down to that last item. That last item can be literally anywhere.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people like to go back to that check last, but I just really don't want to go through that kill room in the front again, which is what would have had to happen if I had skipped that.
I'm also the same way. Usually I like to just get the chest in the back of Mire out of the way, because you can get burned on it really hard if it just happens to be, say, the big key or the item you need.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thought, is that like if I skip that in this spot, I'm probably not coming back in for it. And I had already left side swamp. I had already left Hera basement as isolated checks that I didn't want to go back to.
I had also left the Hera basement unchecked.
Yeah, I think skipping Hera basement makes plenty of sense when you get the Quake medallion off of Moldorm.
Oh, absolutely, because that's the item that opens up 2 dungeons.
Yeah.
And this is demonstrating why you really want to have Tempered during this fight.
Yeah, it saves tons of time.
But I had come to the conclusion at this time that Tempered was simply not available at this point in the scene.
Yeah, it didn't really make a lot of sense that it would be.
Because otherwise we would have found it.
Yeah.
And because I went and got Master Sword, I can avoid using Hammer on Argus and just use spins, which is not only easier, but it's generally faster.
Yeah, it's going to save you some time there. Alright, so here I am on Vitreous throwing bombs at him. Basically the worst case scenario.
This is very difficult as well because of the lightning and just the enemy movement patterns in general. Plus, it takes, I believe, 4 bombs per. Now, going back into now, you might see that I'm going back into swamp here. This was just a mistake from panic more than anything, because at this point I had already skipped Hera basement and I wanted to be thorough.
Yeah.
But this is definitely a mistake.
I tend to agree in this spot. I don't think that you should be going in there. It's actually an even easier argument for you to skip it than it was for me, because you've got Quake already. Whereas I did not have it at the time. So yeah, you see it took me like almost 20 bombs to get it down to a point where I still had to use arrows to kill the last 3 or 4 eyeballs. So it's definitely not very fast. And of course I get a bomb upgrade.
The other thing that this opens up for you is, since this was Mire, you can also check Pyramid Fairy. Yes,
which I believe is where I go next. I always get baited by the Pyramid Fairy, 100% of the time.
I've had way too many races. I don't think in any of the tournaments I've played in I've been baited by I've actually had something required at Tournament Fair, in the tournament I haven't had anything at Pyramid Fairy required, but one of the things that came up is I did a streamed race with one of my subscribers recently, and we had ironically enough, we had Fire Rod at Pyramid Fairy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, in this specific spot, it's like actually just the best play in a vacuum, right?
It makes sense because it's a location that was just opened up, and as we've
just
alluded
opened
to,
up, and even in terms of like item chest density, like a chest per minute argument, my other option is like what, Graveyard Ledge?
there's Graveyard Ledge.
Yeah. Go spend a minute climbing Death Mountain to get bombos. Like, actually, screw this up. By the way, I'm trying to do the thing, but I stopped dashing too early, and the bomb explodes before I get to the screen transition. So I had to walk back and buy it again.
And the only other option is go into Turtle Rock without the Fire Rod, which is usually a terrible idea.
Again, not a wise play. So I was definitely really hoping I was gonna find the Fire Rod here, and then I could just go pull my Master Sword off the pedestal and go finish the game. So this time I'm just gonna take my lickings. I'm gonna slow walk my bomb.
The other mistake. I don't think there were any real routing mistakes on my end until going back into Swamp.
Yeah, I would say I agree. We basically did all the exact same things. I think that one that we could talk about is when you find your Titan mix, you had been given the flute. So I think that fluting to Meyer immediately is the best play there, which you didn't do.
Just unfortunately nothing but love at Pyramid Fairy.
Yes, not a thing. Which like I said, I get baited by Pyramid Fairy every single seed, so that's what I was expecting.
But at this point, because I have Master Sword, I'm still thinking about Ice Palace.
Yeah. And I believe that's my next play. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the Dark World, and I'm gonna go check King's Tomb, I'm gonna check Graveyard Ledge, and I'm gonna go pull my Master Sword and go get bombos. Did not feel too good about it.
Well, the only other option is to go in. The only other option at this point, again, is to go into T-Rock without.
Yeah. Which is a play I considered, but I decided against it because that bombos was there. Right? It didn't seem like that could be a coincidence.
It's either way, either play is tough to make.
Yeah. I've been in situations before where I go into Turtle Rock without the Fire Rod, and it lets you go, like, at least a Mimic Cave before you open that chest and find 20 rupees. And it feels super bad.
I can't remember the last time I've seen something required there, just because it requires so many items to get to.
So yeah, Graveyard Ledge had nothing. We know that King's Tomb has nothing. So yeah, it looks like Ice Palace is going to be my next play.
So, probably about half a dungeon lead at this point. It's not insurmountable, it just depends on which play you make next.
Yeah. When you're still an item away from go mode, like, the balance is in the air.
Exactly. No, when you're searching for that last item, no lead is safe. And it's just the way people think is we're just afraid of the worst case scenario. So whenever something horrible could happen, it's only natural to assume that it will happen.
Yeah.
So it's like Ice or Fire Rod and Turtle Rock is bad. Pedestal required to get to the
bombos to go into Ice Palace is arguably worse.
It is, but on average,
it's gonna be a better play.
It's gonna be the better play because you're guaranteed 3 chests, as opposed to you go into Turtle Rock and you find the compass in the first chest, and can't do anything.
I go and check Hera basement here because this is already my 3rd trip up Death Mountain when I know I have to go at least one more time, and I really didn't want to have to full clear Ice Palace if I could avoid it. So I decided to just swallow that red pill and make that play. I believe
this makes sense too because Ice Palace with no hook shot can be a real bear if there's no early key.
Turns out I don't. I guess I make that check later, which is even worse.
And going straight to Ice Palace.
Yeah. Not really any other play I can make.
And this is where this powder is coming into play, too.
Yeah, it can make such a huge difference. Mire is actually the biggest one for it. Because there's anti-fairies everywhere, and there's also a lot of stupid crap like fire bars and stuff that will just ping you down.
It's a tough dungeon, and if you're not really familiar with it, it's easy to get lost, too.
Yeah.
No early key, either.
Nope, compass. So actually of note, I realized at this exact moment that I currently have 3 bombs. Which is not a good number of bombs to have at this point in Ice Palace.
No, not at all, because if you get an early key, then the Ice Palace bomb jump doesn't actually save that much time, but...
Yeah, in the end, I have to skip past on doing the bomb jump. Because I don't have enough bombs to do it. I do have the red cane, so it's not, you know, the nightmare scenario, but it's not good.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Because you do still have to go all the way around.
Yeah.
You do have to go all the way around the dungeon, but you don't have to go all the way around the dungeon twice.
Yeah. If memory serves, it's actually going to work out.
I think that just the puzzle of Ice Palace stumped everybody their first time playing the game.
Yeah, oh yeah. And that's the biggest reason why I talked before about the first thing you should learn is the Ice Palace bomb jump, because it really just breaks the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And it saves you so much time.
In the vanilla NMG speedrun, the Ice Palace bomb jump saves 5 minutes.
Yeah, and it looks intimidating when you watch it, but you sit down for 10 minutes on the practice ROM and you'll get it.
Especially, Crystal made a flowchart for how to do the Ice Palace bomb jump, and it only takes a few minutes to figure it out. It also helps. It also helps if you have a larger CRT, because it's much easier to actually see the pixels that you use as your visual cue. But like, as long as your CRT, if you're playing on a CRT, as long as it's decent sized, you should be able to see the pixels fine.
So we see the cane dash strats here instead of the bombs, which is definitely quicker, even with that cane lagging the game to an insane degree.
It's quicker and it looks cool.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest boss strats in the game. So now, the only options that I have left
is basically the same situation I was in.
The same situation. And it's, do you go to Ice Palace or do you go to Turtle Rock? Of course, the first thing that you do, which makes the most sense, is to check Pyramid Fairy.
Yeah,
But we know she has nothing.
Okay, if you just give me 25 seconds, I'll be right back.
Good. So now it's just the long trip back downstairs. Just a big 20 in the big chest. And that's not the way to Bombos. So here's the Turtle Rock play. So this is the moment that decides the race. And this Cold Stare fight with Master Sword is also just extremely challenging. This is the second boss that tends to wall people in low percent.
Okay, I'm back. Just in time to see that I screwed up the Cold Stare fight.
Well, the Cold Stare fight is difficult with Master Sword, and it's another big sticking point for completing low percent.
Yeah, when I messed it up, I wasn't concerned that I was about to die, but it definitely slowed it down by quite a lot.
And here's the Turtle Rock play.
Ah, perfect.
So this...
So we have learned that Ice Palace was empty.
Ice Palace was...
Which means that by process of elimination, Turtle Rock is the play that we're going to have to make. So the Fire Rod was placed in basically the worst possible spot it could be in the game.
Yes, we know by process of elimination that the Fire Rod is in Turtle Rock.
And as you'll see, as I'm climbing Death Mountain for the 5th time, I'm right behind you. Because I have cleared Ice Palace,
yes,
I know that it's basically the only spot I have left.
You're actually still ahead because you've completed Ice Palace, but it's not by as much as...
Yeah, you're definitely going to save a lot of time because you get to go mode Ice Palace, which is going to save you
a lot of time,
yeah,
especially
3 or 4 minutes.
Since you didn't do the bomb jump either.
Yep.
And doing this room without Fire Rod is not fun.
Yeah, that was miserable. I think I even menued to switch to it before realizing, oh god, here we go.
And there it is.
Yeah, there's the Fire Rod.
There's the Fire Rod.
Just absolutely unreal that after they put the mitts on Sashala, it does that too.
Yeah, this was just a crazy seed, but now we do have go mode.
Yeah, you are officially in go mode.
In go mode, but not ahead.
Yeah.
Give me like that's fine. So
go ahead.
From here, it's just going to be a lot of who's better at the Trinex fight under these conditions, because
a straight shot to the finish. It's an interesting thing that's going to come up here, though. Actually, when I get my fire rod, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror, and I'm going to immediately leave and go do Skullwoods.
That actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And then I can route Turtle Rock on my way up to Ganon's Tower. And as a nice little bonus, I get to enter GT with full life and full magic because I defeated Trinex. And it gives me an opportunity to hit up the potion shop and buy some extra blue potions.
That actually makes sense because you're not that deep into T-Rock. The reason why I kept going is because I'm here. Why not finish this dungeon?
Yep.
But
and for me, when I get that fire rod, even if I'm gonna finish it, I'm gonna mirror anyway, because I have to go back to the torch room. So if I'm gonna mirror anyway, I might as well just walk out the door. Well, that's the thought process anyway. Maybe it's completely wrong, and I should just finish Turtle Rock while I'm there. I could also see an argument for that.
It depends on how far in you find the fire rod.
Yeah.
I think that particular chest is the last place that you actually leave Turtle Rock.
Yeah. And if you even can, right? Because you've got the torch room like right at the front that has 2 fire rod locked chests. So like if you find the fire rod on the laser bridge, and you can still somehow have enough keys to go kill Trinex, yes, obviously you do that.
I think,
but that's going to be pretty rare.
Because the only way that it's pretty difficult, logic-wise, for there to be for there to not be at least one small key or the big key in.
Yeah, it's almost never. It's like over 90%. Which means, like, even if you do find the fire rod deep, you're gonna have to mirror anyway and do the dungeon twice.
So overall, this was one of the weirdest seeds I've ever played.
Yeah, it was a nightmare from front to back. Like at this point, like I found my fire rod, I really had no idea where I was at that point, like relative to you, right?
It's hard to tell with the way the logic was. The only thing that, like you alluded to before, that could really separate us was how quickly you did Mad Batter. But with the way the logic was in the seed, it made no sense to go there.
No, but you know that in an 80-player weekly, somebody did that, and he's done this seed already. But in a 2-player race, there's no way to know, right? All you need is your one opponent to do the same dumb you did, and everything's fine.
Exactly, and that's what makes the 2-player races exciting. Is the only piece of information that you get is when it's too late.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I knew that at 1 hour 47:50 you were not done yet. So at that point I had ascertained that for sure you had done, right? Because there's no other way. If you hadn't, you'd be finished.
The only thing that you really did differently was you full cleared Ice Palace, and I went back for the one chest in Swamp.
Yeah, and then I had built up enough of a lead over the rest of the race that the full clear of Ice doesn't put me super far behind.
Yeah, just overall, your routing was a little bit better. I think we're on par in terms of execution, which would actually make an NMG race between us interesting.
Well, I'm not even sure I know the route for NMG, so it might not be interesting at all.
I don't run it too much. I'm not really... Yeah. I'm more into the Z1 randomizer. Oh, having Tempered. Tempered was on Laser Bridge, and that helped a ton in this fight.
Yeah, the difference between Master Sword and Tempered Sword Trinex is the fight goes from moderately difficult to completely free. Like, straight up. What we also haven't talked about is that neither of us have found the silver arrows yet.
That's true. So that's another thing that was weighing on my mind, is I didn't know like how good your silverless cannon was.
Yeah.
And not everybody in this tournament can even do silverless cannon.
Yeah, there are some players that will not do it, for sure.
But the farther I got into the last two tournaments, because I'd played in both of the tournaments prior to this, and I had found out
just for me, silverless cannon is something that comes up too often to not be able to do it.
exactly, and if you have tempered, it's honestly not that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
It's doing it with Master Sword that's...
Yeah, which I also wouldn't worry about too much. I don't think I've ever played a seed where I had to do Master Sword silverless.
I've done 2 or 3 seeds.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware that it can happen, but it's very, very rare. And really, if you can do the first 2 phases, you can do the last phase anyways.
The last phase is easier in any case, just because Ganon does less damage.
Yeah, the one you want to be good at is the second phase with the spinning bats. If you can do that with Master Sword, you're in fine shape with any equipment level.
That's actually one of the reasons why, if you're looking to step up your game, I recommend trying to complete low percent, just because low percent Ganon is the scariest condition you can fight in because in the low percent run, you're allowed to take 3 hits during the entire fight.
Yep, fewer if you walk into Ganon, I believe.
Yes, but just in general, you're allowed to take 3 hits, because in low percent you would have green tunic, 13 hearts, Master Sword, no silver arrows. The big one is no bottles.
So, something I'm about to do here, actually, which is we're talking about, is I'm going to skip the big chest. I already skipped Vanilla Big Key. I'm going to skip the big chest. So there's an 85% chance that this works out. There's a 15% chance that both Vanilla Big Key and the big chest have a small key, and there's no key past this point, and I have to come back and find it to get to Trinex. So that was a decision that I made because of how long I had been playing. And it was, there's a good chance that I'm going to need to make up some time somewhere, so this is an easy gamble to make. That 85% of the time it's going to work out.
This makes sense as well. Oh, there's the cape.
Yep.
Which
is a nice item for Ganon. I like the cape. I like the cape. That's a personal favorite item of mine.
You didn't look too happy to find it there, though.
No.
One thing that's easy to forget about, and has caused me to die several times, is that there is there's a delay on when you pull cape out of your menu and when you can use it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of lag, which has definitely killed me before as well.
So now I'll just be able to go mode Ice Palace. But you're almost done with Turtle Rock, so at this point, this is your race to lose.
Yes, I've definitely got a pretty significant lead. But I will say that in terms of execution, Ganon's Tower is definitely what I need to work on the most. I lose time on the gauntlet every single seed.
That's one thing that doing runs of vanilla will improve a lot.
Yes.
And especially with the amount of rando I've played, one of the things I improved most on between the fall tournament and this tournament has been Gauntlet. Yeah,
I just need to, sit down with the practice or I'll grind it. I just haven't gotten to doing that because I'm lazy and bad. But yeah, you're definitely not that far behind. It wouldn't be the first time that a player lost from this position. Although, obviously, with the equipment I have, it's going to be tough. I'm not going to be struggling too much.
What made the difference? The only real difference in this race has really just been the decision to a full clear swamp.
Yeah, that was a big one.
That's the entirety. I think that's the entirety of the time difference in this race. Because going back in the swamp to get that last chest, that's a couple minutes.
It's a lot of time, which goes back to what I was saying. Like, if there's one item there, I'm just not going back in. If what we were looking for is there, well then I lost, and I just kind of accept that.
Nice clean bomb jump too.
Easy, one try every time.
That's something that I worked on a lot in the last tournament.
Yeah.
Because the first tournament I played in, I didn't know how to do it, and I lost 2 of my races because of it.
Yeah, that one, like I was saying, that's in terms of sequence skips, that's the biggest one you can learn for return on your investment. Because it's 15 minutes of practice, and you'll be able to do that.
And also another thing for the breaks is if you don't have the hook shot, then depending on where the items are placed, you can be required to complete the bomb jump. Or no, it's cane. If you don't have cane, then sometimes you can be required to complete the bomb jump.
Of course, not logically.
Not logically. Right. Not logically, but
yeah.
But if you're coming...
You will have to go around looking for that cane, which you might not want to do.
Oh, we also forgot to mention, now that you're in...
Yes, I don't know if I can play the guessing game.
Well, you can't. You can't. You can't. Yeah, you can't. I honestly don't even...
Yeah. I think I remember where it is. So my Gannis Tower route is to go right and get the 2 Hope Room chests, and then to mirror and full clear the left side, regardless of whether or not I get the key. Mathematically, it's just the best play.
I normally check the right side if I get a key.
Yeah, I know that most people do that. Just the number of times the key is over there, I think you waste more time on average clearing it than you do when you get rewarded because it's there.
It's not insignificant though.
Yeah.
And one thing that can impact your decision to go over there as well is if you're missing silvers, then you have more of an incentive to go that way and be a little bit more thorough.
Yeah, but if you go that way and you find the key, then you've been less thorough. Although I don't factor that in, right? Like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to look for silver arrows here.
Whoops.
Yep, messed that up. Only do that every single time.
That's easy to do. That's easy to do unless you've done a lot of runs of vanilla.
Yeah.
So there's, I would say, about a 3-minute difference at this point.
Yeah, 3.5 maybe. It depends, right? Because like there's still the which direction you go in Ganon's Tower.
Which direction in Ganon's Tower? There's Gauntlet Execution.
Yeah.
But at this point, you could take a fall to Ganon and still be fine.
Actually, I take that back because the Hope Room didn't have a key.
The Hope Room didn't.
So there's actually only one way you can go. So there is not going to be a route change, and I'm pretty sure the big key is in the top left chest here.
There's the big key.
So at 1 hour 58 minutes even, I'm beginning my climb to the end with Tempered Sword, but no silver arrows.
Tempered Sword, no silver arrows is fine.
Yep, I tend to. I also have half magic fire rod for the gun, which is my preferred weapon of choice for large sections of it.
One thing, if you're a newer player and you're still learning Gauntlet, and I actually used to do this when I first started playing, is I used to use Bombos for Gauntlet. Even though it was slower than using Fire Rod, it was consistent. Yeah,
it's going to be very consistent. You're going to have the same time, basically every clear.
So until you're better at Gauntlet, Bombos is a strategy. And depending on how skilled your opponent is, it can even wind up saving you time, just because if there's issues in Gauntlet...
there are some Gauntlet rooms that if they go bad, it goes real bad.
Oh, absolutely.
So my strategy for that cannonball room is to walk off the side, and then you have enough iframes to just dash through them.
That's a good strategy, actually.
Yep.
And also, another thing that it does is it also makes sure that you don't have full health for Gauntlet. Because
yes, you don't want sword beams. That's awful.
Sword beams really get in the way.
So my first 3 Gauntlet rooms went not bad.
First 4, I'd say that was a good. That was a good 4th room too.
I am a little low on health.
That was.
Although I do.
That Gauntlet was good.
Yes, it was.
I would take
It's not perfect, but I would take that.
It's not perfect, but it's definitely acceptable.
So I don't have the silver arrows anyway, so I'm just gonna power to the anti-fairy. Get some health back.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Two-cycle ammo 2. Not bad, not great.
2-cycle Landmo 2 without silvers is fine.
Yep.
One cycle Landmo with Fire Rod is incredibly difficult. The Wizrobe rooms on the 5th floor are some of my favorite rooms in Ganon's Tower.
Yeah, they're cool. Definitely my favorites too. I don't like the room after this second one. One of my least favorite rooms in the game.
Nice Wizrobe.
I wanted to switch to that, get that full magic, but I ended up sliding through the door, so I ended up having to leave it behind.
Nice Wizrobe 2 room, by the way. That's not easy. That's not easy to do. Because actually getting to the 4th Wizrobe before it disappears is pretty difficult. And there's the big key, so it's a little over a 3-minute lead.
This is definitely, at this point, a lead where you're hoping that I fall to Ganon. That's how you would catch up.
That's really the only way at this point.
Yeah.
And it would have to be more than one fall, I think.
Depends on when. If I fall in the last phase, that's... Maybe it doesn't catch you up all the way, but it's close enough that you make a race.
So based on the way this is, what made the difference in this race was full clearing swamp.
Yeah. But if that fire rod had been there, I'd probably still be looking at it, and you'd have been done 10 minutes ago.
I'm sorry, if the fire rod had been where?
Left side swamp.
Oh yeah, true. And that's what it is about. That's what makes this so. What makes races so exciting to watch is just the search for the last item.
So I choke hard on Agatu. This is like an cycle or something awful. Spoiler alert.
The patterns for Agatu were very difficult.
Yep, but I put a decent amount of practice into this. I'm typically pretty consistent. But not this time.
I mean, there's just so many patterns that... It's just
See,
hard
like,
to
that
adapt.
one was a free triple. Just gotta get one. And then there was that disaster.
And if you take too long, then the clones start to get desynced and it just gets awful.
Yeah. And I somehow don't get the triple there. So yeah, you definitely opened the door for you to make up some time.
And really, especially when you get to the hour 45, hour 15, even now, you just can't help but look at the race chat every. Just look at the race chat every 30 seconds. Yep. Just be like, where is this dot done? Where is this dot done? So this isn't the worst, but this is one of the trolliest seeds I have ever played.
Yeah, it was quite bad. I had one not that long ago where hookshot was on the pedestal, and the boots that you needed to get independent mire were left side.
Wow,
I'm pretty sure that's the worst seed I've ever played.
That's awful. Anytime you have to double dip swamp is just awful.
So this is why I like the cape. It basically makes guaranteed one cycle phase 2 every time.
It's easy to forget that you have it too, especially since the cape was so late.
And now we've got Ganon teleport percent.
Which is one of the reasons why I don't care as much for the speedrun of this game, just because there's a significant amount of RNG at the end of the run.
Yeah. So I deliberately stun him the first time and make sure I get that torch glitch. You don't want to miss that if you're Silverless. And then you get to work.
If you don't have half magic, you have to get torch glitch. You just don't have enough magic otherwise.
I'd say yeah, for this phase, like I can do it. I'm not fantastic. I don't consistently four cycle it like some people can. I miss sometimes, but I'm not a threat to, you know, get hit and fall off the ledge or anything.
But I imagine at this point, like, neither one of us found the silver arrows, so they were probably either Armos 2 or right side Ganon, or right side GT.
That's where they have to be. I didn't check the I only checked validation climb, so they could be there too.
I felt like I was under too much time pressure.
Yeah, validation just had a bottle parry actually, so it was arguably relevant.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
That was a pretty well executed Ganon fight too.
Yep.
But had I left the Swamp Palace chest alone, it would have been.
This would have been close.
It would have been just heartbreaking for one of us because there probably would have been a fanfare snipe.
Yeah. I noticed that my time is on my timer says 2:06:36, and the recorded time was 2:06:45. There was some lag on the input, I guess. I don't know.
SRL is really weird. Plus I actually think that the admins, from what I can tell, because they want screenshots of the final
time.
Rate. They might actually be. I don't know if they're going by SRL time or by in-game time at this point.
They're definitely not going by in-game time because there are some situations where you can finish in second place with a shorter in. I've seen it happen before.
I think that actually happened in a sub race that I did with.
Yeah.
I remember.
So no cape tech from you, but you still got the one cycle.
It was because I more wanted to rely on the blue potion.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have my bases covered in case torch glitch didn't happen. But I'm consistent enough at it.
Yeah.
Mostly from doing low percent practice where you have to get torch glitch with just a few uses of the lantern.
Yeah, I got a good pattern on Ganon too. If his first teleport there is right by the torch, it can be
awful, yeah.
Scary. Yeah.
But this the Silverless Ganon phase wound up going pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
When you have to do 24 of these spins, you get very good at doing 12.
Yes.
Because this is one of those seeds where, unless you absolutely need them, you're not finding silver arrows.
That was a bit of a scary hit, but you got through it.
I still have that bottled fairy, which is why I'm not using
Yeah.
a potion. Not at all concerned about dying. If I didn't have that bottled fairy, then I would obviously use the blue potion.
Yeah, it's not death that concerns me, it's getting dragged off the pit. But that didn't happen,
That's
and Ganon down.
So I'm not quite sure that the Swamp Palace play is the entire difference in this race, but it's definitely the majority of it. So a difference of 3 minutes and 18 seconds, still a close race, and it was still actually really interesting and exciting to watch.
Yeah, I did the Ice Palace thing too. You went straight to the Fire Rod into the rock. Which was another big swing in how much time was spent in certain places.
But just in general, your routing was significantly better. And I definitely have a couple of things to learn.
Yeah, I saved a lot of time in the first hour in locations like Skull Woods and in Pod, where just by opening the chest in a better order, I had a bit of a lead. Which turned out to be important, because I needed it in the end. But yeah, GG's, that was a fun race.
GG's, that was very fun to watch back as well. Like there were just a few differences, but that will happen in a seed as linear as this one.
It tends to be a lot more fun to watch an Awful Seed than it is to play one.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I certainly enjoyed watching this back quite a lot more than I did when I found that Fire Run.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna just try to do this with whoever I play in the tournament, since I have a loss at this point, I'm not expecting to get a restream for any match.
Well, I don't know. It seems like they're kind of short on restreamers, actually.
Yeah, I have the connection to do it. I just don't have the it's not 100% reliable.
Yeah, which is if there's one guy that they need to be reliable.
Oh, that's where the last sword is.
Oh, cool.
The last sword.
We never found the mushroom though, right?
No mushroom. Probably in GT somewhere.
Yeah, well, statistically, that's where it is.
It has to be because together we did a full clear.
Yeah, we didn't check Hera basement.
Right.
So it could be there.
It could be there.
I don't know if either of us checked what was on Bumper Cave.
Right, it could be at Bumper Cave.
Yeah, I think that's it, other than Gannis Tower.
So those were really... So all in all, I think those are the trolliest sword locations I've ever seen. They were at what? Spike Cave, Laser Bridge, Mushroom, which is likely... Or the Mushroom turn-in, which is likely the Mushroom is in GT, and Pedestal.
Yeah, I've had a few like that too.
No wonder we couldn't find swords.
No. We ended up with Tempered in the end, which is... Can't complain too much, although we did have to pull one off the pedestal.
But I think in this case, pulling that sword from the pedestal wound up saving more time than it did to actually complete the last Pennant dungeon.
Well, in the end, it certainly saved time, because we'd had to do Master Sword Silverless Ganon.
Master Sword Silverless Ganon alone takes about as much time as Hera.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Master Sword versus Tempered Sword, Silverless Ganon, it's at least 3 minutes longer.
And it also opens the door for things to start going wrong.
"66-minute first sword."
Yep. Doesn't mean why wouldn't it be, right?
Why not?
And I also played a full hour, almost a full hour, bootless, fluteless, mirrorless. Because why not?
It just having those movement items early just makes it makes Seeds so much better to play.
Yeah. 4:35 menu, never playing again.
I don't know if they've made a change to how they measure menu time, but I've been noticing significantly shorter menu times with V29.
Yeah, I try to be at least a minute faster than that.
Because I'm beginning to wonder if now the transition into the menu and the transition out of the menu aren't timed. Because what I liked to shoot for on V28 was 2 minutes per in-game hour.
Fair enough.
But now I've noticed that the menu times are much shorter. For instance, I've had sub 3 menu times in 2-hour Seeds on this logic now, so I'm beginning to wonder if there's been a change in how it's calculated.
I'm not the guy to ask, wouldn't know.
That's something I'll have to bring up to VTorp. So pretty much every difficult location in the Seed was required, except we didn't have to kill the wizard. That's about it.
Yep. Really hard to imagine a way you don't end up basically 100%ing this. Like, you could have skipped pod, but
other than that,
it would be a bold play.
Other than that, the routing for the Seed just sent you all over the place.
Yeah.
And I've definitely learned a lot about the way items can be placed in the randomizer just from watching the Seed back, because there are a lot of things that happen in here that I'd never thought about before. Specifically, the sword upgrade at the pedestal being required.
Well, it actually wasn't technically required.
It was not required in the Seed, but there was definitely a situation where it very well could have been.
Yeah.
So what menu time do we have? 3:55. That's fine.
It's a lot better than me.
It helps that I've actually I used to run an RPG a while ago. A couple years ago, I actually used to run Earthbound for the Super Nintendo. But in any case, do you have any last words about the Seed?
This was the garbage fire of the highest order. That's about all I have to say.
I don't have any other words that are family friendly. So thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. I'm gonna have this highlighted and uploaded tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed watching that back. It was fun. And GG's. Hope you do well the rest of the way.
I hope so as well. I need to get some wins.